I want you to look at this photograph before I say another word. It's a pizza box. Just a plain, greasy pizza box sitting on my old kitchen table. The one my late husband built with his own 2 hands 40 years ago. My daughter sent me that photo 3 weeks ago with a message underneath it that said, "Enjoy your last supper in that house, Mom." She thought she'd won. She thought I was 74 years old and finished. She had no idea what was sitting in my lawyer's office, already signed, already sealed, already waiting for exactly this moment. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now, and if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because what I'm about to share with you is the kind of story that reminds you it's never too late to stand up for yourself, no matter your age, no matter who's trying to push you down. My name is Clara. I'm 74 years old, and this is my story told in my own words, exactly as it happened to me. Let me take you back to the beginning because you need to understand who I was before all this started. I raised my daughter Lauren, mostly on my own after my husband passed when she was 19. I worked 2 jobs. I cleaned houses in the morning and did the books for a small hardware store in the afternoon. I never had much, but I had that house. A little 3-bedroom on Maple Hollow Road that my husband and I bought when we were young and broke and full of dreams. Every board, every nail, every crack in the ceiling had a memory attached to it. That house was the only thing in this world that was truly mine. Lauren grew up, got married to a man named Peter, and for a long time things were good between us. I babysat their kids. I cooked Sunday dinners. I thought we had the kind of relationship that would carry us both into my old age with dignity and love. I was wrong, and I didn't see it coming until it was almost too late. About 2 years ago, Peter lost his job. Not long after, they lost their apartment because they'd been living beyond their means, buying things they couldn't afford, taking vacations they hadn't saved for. I didn't judge them for it. Times get hard. I offered to let them move into my house temporarily while they got back on their feet. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was doing what any parent would do for their child in trouble. That was my first mistake, though I didn't know it yet. First, things were fine. Lauren helped with groceries, Peter did small repairs around the house, and I enjoyed having my grandchildren close by. But slowly something shifted. It started with small comments. "Mom, this house is really too big for just you." "Mom, don't you think it's time you thought about the future?" "Mom, you're not getting any younger." I brushed it off. I told myself they were just concerned about me. Children worry about their aging parents. That's natural. But the comments kept coming and they kept getting sharper. Lauren started bringing up my age at every opportunity, in front of the grandchildren, in front of her friends when they visited. She'd say things like, "We really need to think about what happens to Mom's house when she can't manage on her own anymore," as if I were already gone, as if I were furniture to be discussed and rearranged rather than a person sitting right there in the room. Then one afternoon about 8 months ago, I came home from my weekly visit to the senior center, and I found a folder sitting on my kitchen table. Inside were papers, legal papers, a power of attorney document and something about transferring the deed of the house into a trust, with Lauren and Peter listed as the trustees. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't asked for anything like this. When I asked Lauren about it, she waved her hand and said, "Oh, it's just for convenience, Mom. In case something happens to you. You should really sign it so we don't have to deal with a mess later." Something in my gut told me to slow down. I didn't sign it that day. I told her I wanted to think about it, and I could see the flicker of irritation cross her face, quick as lightning, gone before most people would have noticed it. But I noticed it. A mother always notices. I didn't sign those papers. Not then and not ever. But that refusal changed everything between us. The warmth I used to feel from my own daughter turned cold almost overnight. She stopped calling me for anything but arguments. Peter started referring to the house as our place in front of the grandchildren. And worst of all, they started treating me like a guest in my own home. Like an inconvenience they were waiting to outlast. I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever felt like a stranger in the very place that used to be your safest space? That feeling doesn't just hurt. It hollows you out. I'd go to bed at night in the same room I'd slept in for 4 decades and feel like I was renting a room from people who couldn't wait for me to leave. So I did something I should have done months earlier. I called an old friend of mine, a woman named Bettina, who happened to be a retired paralegal. I told her everything, and she looked at me with this steady, serious expression and said, "Clara, you need a lawyer, and you need one now before this gets worse." She gave me the name of a young attorney in town, sharp as a tack, patient as a saint, who specialized in elder law. I made an appointment the very next day. That lawyer sat with me for 2 hours. She asked me question after question about my finances, my property, my family situation. Peter began ignoring me at meals, speaking over me when I tried to join conversations. My own grandchildren, picking up on their parents' attitude, started treating me less like their grandmother and more like an obstacle in the hallway. The breaking point came on a Friday evening. Lauren had invited a group of her friends over for what she called a small gathering. I wasn't included in the guest list. Not that she told me directly. I simply overheard her on the phone saying, "No, Mom won't be joining us, she'll probably just stay in her room like usual." Like usual. As if I had become a piece of furniture that got wheeled out of sight when company came over. I stayed in my room that night, not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a confrontation before I was ready. Through the wall I could hear laughter, glasses clinking, the smell of pizza drifting down the hallway. And then later that night, I received a text message from Lauren. It was a photograph of the pizza boxes stacked on my kitchen table, grease stains and all, with her friend's hands raising a toast in the background. Underneath, the caption read, "Enjoy your last supper in that house, Mom." She thought she was being clever. She thought the papers were as good as signed, that it was only a matter of time before I gave in out of exhaustion or fear of being alone. I sat on the edge of my bed holding that phone, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Not heartbreak, though there was plenty of that underneath. What I felt more than anything was clarity. A calm, cold clarity, the kind that comes when you finally stop hoping someone will change and start trusting yourself to handle what comes next. The following Monday, I called my attorney and told her everything. I told her about the pizza photo, about the comments, about the months of being made to feel invisible in my own home. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "Claire, you've already done the hard part. Now we simply let the truth do the rest." 2 weeks later, I asked Lauren and Peter to sit down with me at the kitchen table, the very same table where that pizza box had sat, mocking me in photographic form. I brought a folder of my own. Inside were copies of the documents my attorney and I had prepared, my deed, secured solely in my name, my updated will, and my power of attorney naming Bettina as my representative. I watched Lauren's face as she flipped through the pages. I watched the color drain out of it, replaced by a kind of disbelief that quickly curdled into anger. "You went behind our backs," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. And I looked her dead in the eye, calm as still water, and I said, "No, Lauren." I finally stopped letting things happen behind mine. I told them both, clearly and without raising my voice, that they were welcome to stay in the house while they continued getting back on their feet, but only under new terms. There would be a written agreement, a modest and fair rent contribution, a respect for boundaries, and an end to any further conversations about transferring my property. I told them that the disrespect I had endured over the past several months was over, effective immediately, and that if they couldn't agree to treat me with the basic dignity I deserved as a human being, let alone as their mother and grandmother, they were free to find other living arrangements. Peter left the room without a word. Lauren sat there, staring at the papers, and for a long moment, neither of us said anything. The day they moved out, Lauren hugged me at the door, and she cried. And she told me she was sorry for how she had treated me during the hardest stretch of their lives. I believed her. Not because the pain of those months had disappeared, but because I could see in her eyes that she finally understood